So is your cat a familiar? I was doing some research on familiars recently, and I came across something that was kind of interesting. So not all animals necessarily qualify for this title, but a lot of us are handing it out without really understanding exactly what that means. So I thought I would jump on today and talk to you guys a little bit about how to sort of identify familiars properly. Now, let's define what that is in case you guys don't know. So a familiar is basically an animal that acts as a guide to witches. Originally, a familiar existed to protect new witches as they came into their magical powers. So the familiar then kind of continues to assist them on their spiritual path when they're doing like rituals, spells, or other type of spiritual work. So many practitioners assume that if they have an animal, it automatically becomes a familiar, right? Because they're a witch. So unfortunately, this is not the case. And what you should know is that the familiar always chooses its witch, not the other way around. So you might not get the one that you wanted or expected, but you will always get the one that you need. So while many pets just sort of serendipitously make their way into a witch's home, sometimes they're just a companion that person feels very connected to. But having a special bond alone really doesn't meet the characteristics of being a familiar. So how do you tell whether or not your pet is a familiar? Well, unfortunately, there's not like a set checklist of qualifications, but your pet will probably exhibit certain behaviors that'll allow you to determine the difference between a snuggly little friend and your magical helper. So let's go over what some of those are. So a familiar, first of all, likes to get involved in any kind of magical work that you're doing. They might be inspecting ingredients, laying on your tarot cards, and trying to help you with energy work, maybe, just to name a few. Sometimes they just want to be near you when you're doing that type of work. For example, my old cat Salem used to do this all the time, and he would lay on top of my tarot cards and he would kind of bat my hand away sometimes when I would try to pick them up. Sometimes he would try to snuggle or sit near me when I was meditating, and he always came out to say hello to my students when I was teaching classes out of my house. So that is one thing that maybe you can look for if you think your cat might be, or your pet in general might be a familiar. So the second thing that we want to look at is that their energy level increases when you're doing magic or rituals or anything like that. So this could look like suddenly getting a case of the zoomies, or jumping up and wanting to play after being asleep all day, or even looking like they want to get involved and kind of help you out. It's almost like they can feel the energy moving differently and they want to just be in like that flow with you. All right, the third thing you want to look at is that they have no fear of the elements, right? Which is earth, air, fire, and water. Now, some pets are terrified of water, or they might tend to get really nervous around open candle flames. So if your little fur baby falls into this category, they might not be a familiar. So this is definitely something very interesting to pay attention to when you're observing your pets. So number 4, something else you can look for is that they have a really calm temperament. Because a familiar really genuinely needs to have like a more neutral temperament in order to help assist you in your magical workings, as well as helping keep things grounded, right? Because otherwise, if their energy's up, it's going to interfere with what you're doing. So if you have a pet that seems like overly nervous or agitated or is like a little all over the place, they might be disqualified from this marker. The 5th thing we want to kind of look at here is that they're always trying to really help you in whatever way that they can. Now, this help that your familiar gives you might actually feel annoying. They might be a little bit like up in your business, and what you're interpreting as disruptive is actually them kind of like trying to help you. So make sure that you pay attention to how they're acting and any messages that they might be attempting to share with you in their own weird little ways. If you're making like an herbal remedy, for example, and you pick the wrong jar, your familiar might kind of like knock their nose or like paw or some tap on the correct one, right, to kind of help you out. So from their perspective, they're helping you figure it out, but in your mind, they're just knocking shit over and making a mess. So nothing is like really coincidence when it comes to magic. So pay attention to the details. The 6th thing we want to kind of touch on is that they lift your energy when they're around, especially and particularly if you are personally struggling. Now, I think this can be said of most pets. They're full of love and kindness and warmth, and they do tend to snuggle up to us when we've had a bad day. However, this qualification specifically recognizes that the pet must change your emotional vibration as opposed to just being nice to snuggle with, right? So being connected and in tune with your own body will help you determine which one is which in this particular area. The seventh thing that we can use as a benchmark is that when you talk to them verbally or mentally, they listen and they do what you've asked them to do, right? It's a little trippy, but it happens, right? Have you ever, told your pet or your familiar to do something and they listen to your instructions specifically, right? Or maybe you're thinking that you need them to do something and then 2 seconds later they complete your request. So familiars are connected with us on such a deep level that we can really work with them using this type of communication system. It can seem a little disconcerting at first, but when you get used to it, can ultimately strengthen your connection, as well as being a really useful tool to have. So essentially, if your pet does any of these things, it's a good indicator that they're working with you on a more magical level than just a furry companion. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and you can subscribe to my channel for more like-minded content. But until next time, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you and I hope that you all have a beautiful day.